Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official audio show of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, Kirk Buchner, the Buck, the owner and the operator of NotInHallOfFame.com and the sister sites, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame and the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's Season 1, Episode 35 of the Hall of Fame show, and Evan, Nolan, and I, well, it's not necessarily the happiest of shows because we've got a lot of passings that we've got to take a look at. Basketball got hit particularly hard. Lute Olson, famed coach at Arizona, passed on, as did John Thompson from Georgetown. Another great player, former Sixth Man of the Year, Clifford Robinson, is no longer with us. And while it's not quite a sports-related death, we took a look at Chadwick Boseman, who played Jackie Robinson in the baseball biopic 42. Other deaths included the greatest New York Met of all time, Tom Seaver, and of WWE Hall of Famer Bullet Bob Armstrong. We also took a look at a few other topics. There's a fan who decided that he was going to nominate Colin Kaepernick for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and apparently you can. We look at whether this is a little bit premature. We also looked at the Missouri Valley Conference Hall of Fame that announced their new class. And normally this isn't really that big news, but it might be one of the most interesting classes I've ever seen for a college conference. There was also the announcement of the R&B Hall of Fame, the Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame, and their class of 2020, but they didn't really do much of a job promoting it. And we talked a bit about that and how a hall with so many great names and members and just isn't getting its due, and I think a lot of that, sadly, is their own fault. Without further ado, let's bring in Evan, and let's look at the week that was when it comes to Halls of Fame. Evan, what's new in the world of Hungarian Olympics?
All right. I know people talk about the deep state. But I'm telling you now, the deep state is killing Hungarian Olympic athletes. I've been tracking this for 20 weeks now. And for the 20th consecutive week, we've had a death of a Hungarian Olympic athlete. Over the last month, there have been no Olympic athletes in the United States, as far as I can tell on Wikipedia, who have passed away. And this week, Laszlo Kamudi, four-time Olympic Hungarian fencer, passed away at the age of 80. There is a conspiracy, my friend. I'm the only one who sees it. I got to get on YouTube. I get a channel going.
You're like way ahead of the curve on this. Like, this could be a Netflix show.
Do you happen to know anyone who has who's an agent? Okay.
No.
It's just weird because I just checked before the show anyway, just to see if there's anyone important who we may have missed along the way. The last week we had like nobody to talk about who passed away, and we're more than making up for it this week.
Well, it's so funny, too. Well, no, it's not funny. It's a poor choice of words of the use of funny. But coincidental, because as soon as we were done recording, you sent me a message and just said how Lute Olson died. Yeah.
Like right after we said no one passed away, legitimately, while we were still talking, the report was 17 minutes old when I hung up. So like towards the end of our thing last time, Lute Olson passed away, and that just let off the week of all sorts of people passing. Do you want to just start with Lute Olson and John Thompson? Probably you start with college basketball. It's probably the top story here.
Yeah, I thought just to mix it up, we'll just go death something else, just because I don't want to go through 5 straight obituaries. I really hated writing it.
Yeah, but I think we should probably take Olson and Thompson at the same time, just because they're the two pillars in college basketball.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Lute Olson, icon at Arizona. I loved when I was sort of like learning about his career, how it's almost like the perfect, just gradual, just growing your brand bit by bit by bit by bit. Playing his college ball at a school I've never heard of, Augsburg in Minneapolis.
I live not that far from there, and I've never heard of it either. So
apparently, like a liberal arts college, and then right after that, so he just went right into coaching high school ball. Didn't waste any time with that, and he was doing that for quite a few years before he even got really any attention to move up to the ranks. So the way I'm sort of seeing that, 2 pairs of high schools. Actually, then an assistant, all of these based in Minnesota, then in Long Beach Community College in 1969. So that wasn't until, so his first college coaching career didn't begin until 13 years after he began as a high school coach. Then Long Beach State. Mm-hmm. Then it was such a jump, I always thought, from Long Beach State to Iowa. But I couldn't really tell if Iowa was that, or maybe I'm thinking in a football plane. Because maybe it wasn't that big a jump.
I can't tell you I know exactly what the state of Big Ten basketball was in 1980 or 1974, I guess, when he made the jump there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did bring Iowa to their first Final Four, though, back in 1980, which is why I said that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
He brought them places they had never been before, and I don't think Iowa's been that far since either.
No, I'm pretty sure they haven't been. Just like that's mostly a football school, and then he got the big gig at Arizona and
wrestling
and wrestling. That's right.
Sorry.
Yes.
All right. And wrestling. Yeah, Iowa State are like wrestling is actually their first sport for both of them. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and then he was this icon in Arizona for just seemingly forever. And doesn't it always seem sometimes when we're talking about legendary college coaches that a lot of them don't win the big one? But they're still considered mm-hmm. legends. It just shows how hard it is, and sometimes you just have to be lucky, almost, than good. But he's a champion. 1997, taking the Wildcats all the way. 4 Final Fours with Arizona, 4 Pac-10 titles, multi-time Coach of the Year, 7-time Pac-10 Coach of the Year. And the thing that always I found sort of strange, especially when we were talking about this before, I think you and I were already talking about that. Like inducted twice in the College Basketball Hall of Fame, and the second time just so that they could do it right because they inducted 180 people the first time. Like, okay,
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's all fine and good that he gets to be honored twice, but maybe you do it right the first time, or you figure out, hey, maybe a College Basketball Hall of Fame should exist, and someone should have came up with that 50 years ago. Kind of like a United States Athletic Hall of Fame.
Something like that, yeah. But I mean, if they did things right the first time, the faces and small faces wouldn't be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So,
exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, but just by the way, that '97 team
mm-hmm.
That went all the way is, I believe, still the only team to beat 3 number 1 seeds on the way to the championship.
I think you're right. Yes.
They beat Kansas, then they beat. Hold on, I just want to make sure that it was Kansas, then North Carolina, then Kentucky. There was a game in the middle. They had to play Providence in between Kansas and North Carolina, but they're I still think they're the only team to win to beat 3 number 1 seeds in one tournament. The only number 1 seed they didn't have a chance to play was Minnesota, who also made the Final Four that year. So it's still one of the most impressive runs in the tournament. And Miles Simon and who's the other one? Was it Gilbert Arenas? I can't remember who the other main guy in that team was right now. It's dropped out of my head.
Well, Arenas was there. I don't think he was playing for them at that time. Was he? Let me look that up really quick.
I'm trying to remember who was on that team. I should have been better prepared, but I should have been better prepared is basically the motto of this podcast. Yeah, those teams were. He was an absolute legend in basketball, and I mean he lived a long life at 85. His dad passed away at age 47 back in 1939. That's how old Lute Olson was, I mean he's one of the 20 greatest coaches in college basketball history, probably.
Definitely. Arenas joined the Wildcats in '98, so he wasn't part of that. So the 2 big stars in that team were Mike Bibby and Jason Terry.
Bibby. Right. Miles Simon is on that team too, though, wasn't
yes, he was.
Yeah, I thought so.
Michael Jefferson too, but
I remember being his career was nowhere near as good as the others I know, but for some reason I remember always thinking Miles Simon first with that team. So
I always think of Jimmy King third and the Fab Five. So I hear what you're talking about.
You don't go straight to Dugan Fife?
I do not. Oh, wow. Very well done.
That's how deep my friend's love of the Fab Four was back when we were kids. I remember coming out of CCD all the time and talking about college basketball with the Fab Four, and then there'd be five of us, and someone would have to be Dugan Fife as the fifth person. So, or the Fab Five. I'm sorry. Yeah. So someone was always Dugan Fife anyway. So.
I always maintain that the Miami Heat kept Juwan Howard and just for like one extra year, just so that he could keep telling stories about how he came up with baggy pants. Because he served no purpose on that team.
Is that why Stockton stayed so long in Utah, so he could be the alternate to that?
Well, the only difference was I think Stockton was pretty good in that in his towards the tail end of his career, but he didn't win that title. If I remember right? Like I think I think they just threw Juwan in for like the last minute of that wrap up game. I think that might have been the only minutes he played. Like he was entering Scalabrini territory for contributions. So I mean, again, he was there just to tell that story. So I could just picture like LeBron and Dwayne just saying, "Come on, Juwan, tell me again. Like when you said you were going to get these shorts that were too big. I remember it like it was yesterday."
I have to say, your career has not gone well when you're being compared to a gangly white dude with orange hair. That's pretty much the depth of your career.
Well, just to that component, I think I'd rather be Juwan than Mr. Scalabrini, but
true.
Yeah.
I guess Matt Bonner is a white dude with orange hair who was pretty good for a while, for at least on the shooting side of things. Probably the greatest NBA player ever from New Hampshire, which is saying something about New Hampshire.
Former Toronto Raptor at one point in time.
That is correct. So, speaking of which, I'm glad the Raptors pulled one out yesterday. By the way, as much as I'm a Celtics fan, just because it makes it more interesting, I'd be real nervous if somehow we swept right through them. I feel like something was destined to go wrong in the next round. So, of course, we have to get to the next round. But
it's so interesting seeing what's happening just with Miami. This is not the team I would have thought that would have went 3-0 right now. Milwaukee just felt like a team of destiny for a little bit, but every time you think of a team of destiny, that generally doesn't happen, and I got to remember that.
The Bruins kind of found their face as well, so I know you had them in your whatever pool you had. So. Oh
yes. So listen to a bit of advice, kids. If I think that someone's going to win something, they're not.
Which is why I'm usually up on him in beer.
That's true.
Whatever he says, I will just pick the opposite. So
it's worked for you so far.
That's why Cam Newton and the Patriots is going to earn me another beer this year. So
it could very well. And I need COVID to sort of win my bets. Houston Astros and hit by pitch.
That is true. It was close. It was close there for a while, but.
Speaking of COVID, you notice that Robert Pattinson just got contracted with COVID? I mean,
I did not. I saw The Rock did in his whole family.
But like, how ironic that Batman's got COVID.
Just because he's a sparkly vampire?
Well, no, just because because it came from a bat. You think he'd be immune?
Oh, I'm sorry. Got it. Yes. Sorry, I'm not up on my. I basically told you I wasn't actually sure whether he was a vampire or the werewolf, so I was guessing and hoping I was right.
My wife had me watch the first one of those movies, and I think I had the same reaction that most men did when they were forced to watch it. Like, why are these two guys fighting over the mopey girl? I don't get it.
Yeah.
And I never watched another one again.
Well, I have a good transition here. John Thompson.
Who also, he did fight people. He didn't fight for love. He fought for the love of his players. No, okay.
I suppose that's true. I mean, Allen Iverson's eulogy or thankfulness or whatever you want to say for John Thompson was incredibly touching. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. It's just the effect that he had on players, and First African American. I would have thought that somebody would have done this before after he passed, and then hearing all the obits come. I didn't realize he was the first African American coach to win it all in the NCAA. I mean, I guess I assume they're because I've seen so many black coaches in college, unlike the NBA. I just incorrectly assumed that it had already happened before him.
Yeah, honestly, I would have figured the coach of Texas Western in 1966 would have been it, but that was Don Haskins, just because that was the first all African American team ever to win, or African American starting five ever to win the title back in 1966, and Kentucky was going to refuse to play him because they were going to have to play against black players, and they beat him in the championship. So I just automatically in my head presumed that Don Haskins was African American, but clearly he was not. So
just the players that he had to Patrick Ewing. Again, that championship in '84, he was an Olympic medalist. Granted, it was a bronze, but no, that was '88. Before I think that was sort of the impetus of the Dream Team, and not winning the gold is certainly no fault of John Thompson at that point. In '88, just the other countries had certainly caught up. But 7-time Coach of the Year in the Big East, multi-time Coach of the Year. But there was that story where he's confronting a drug lord, protecting his players, and just essentially saying, just stay away from my guys. And and sometimes maybe I've been watching Jeff Van Gundy too often on TV. Because I don't think of the intimidating basketball coach. John Thompson comes up at 6'10". He's sort of like the Uncle Phil come to life, only Uncle Phil's much tougher.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, but and don't forget, he also won 2 NBA championships with the Celtics.
Yes, I was just going to say. Just looking,
Bill Russell's backup from 64 to 67. He played so little they called him the caddy because he was just carrying the bags for Russell. He only averaged 3.5 points and 3.5 rebounds in 74 games, and got selected by the Bulls in the '66 expansion draft and just did not want to play for Chicago. So he decided to go into coaching.
Yeah, it's again such a different time back then where you can throw away pro money because it wasn't that much.
Right.
And it was certainly the right call. The right call. I'm just looking at the list of players that he had. Ewing, Floyd, Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe. No. I just love those commercials where he's blocking everything. How do you not love Dikembe Mutombo?
It's impossible not to love Dikembe Mutombo. Unless he blocks your shot, and then you kind of feel like, oh man, my shot got blocked by Dikembe Mutombo. That's kind of cool.
there is something to it, and he really put like Georgetown on the map. I think it was Bill Simmons who he said like when he was much younger, that's where he wanted to go to college, and a big part of that was because of John Thompson and their basketball program. That's
actually originally where I wanted to go to college too. Believe it or not.
Oh really?
Except. Yeah, I went to American University in D.C., but I went down to D.C. originally thinking I wanted to go to Georgetown. And then, no, this has nothing to do with John Thompson. I just hated every second I was on that campus. That campus was just not... although there is a cemetery, like, right in the middle of campus, which is kind of freaky. But, yeah, it's that's not a school known for its sports. Other than basketball. And honestly, since he left, I mean, his son was there for a little bit, but since he left, it's just not even been close with Georgetown and being on the national map anymore.
No, but it's still sort of like this great retro feel, if that makes any sense. Like you almost want to see Georgetown sort of come back, and it's all because of Thompson. Like you just sort of like want to have memories of that. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people feeling the same way about UNLV because of Tarkanian. But I think this was more of much more of a human connection that Thompson clearly had with his players, based on, like you said, with Iverson's eulogy and just the reaction across the basketball world.
Honestly, I just want the 1980s Big East back, like those teams playing each other again. That's the one thing that has really sucked about. Well, I mean, there are lots of things that really sucked about the way that the NCAA has divided itself up. And I don't think 5 years from now, I don't think there is going to be an NCAA. I think there's going to be. Well, there will be, but it will be without the 5 major conferences. I think they're going to go split off on their own because they don't need it. But yeah, just the old rivalry, like at the height even of 2005 or so, when you had the bigger schools in there too. So it was Georgetown and Boston College and Syracuse and Pittsburgh, West Virginia, Louisville, St. John's, Providence, like Connecticut. Like all those games just felt like all-out wars, just punch in the face over and over. It didn't matter who you were playing. It just was awesome. And now, like Boston College went to the ACC, and did anyone know they're there? Like it's just those one of the highlights of the year, even more than the NCAA tournament in many ways, was the huge Big East tournament. Like when Connecticut won with Kemba Walker, they won the national title, but they had to win 5 games in 5 days in the Big East before they even got into the NCAAs. And that was one of the most incredible achievements, I think, ever for a college basketball team. Getting through that first day and winning 5 games in 5 days against that level of competition and how brutal all those games always were. I just miss that. The 80s basketball was awesome in the Big East. Yeah, it's just incredible.
I think you're right. I think the days of college basketball, especially with and forgive me, I'm forgetting the name of the not the rookie league. What is it? The developmental league for people who don't want to necessarily go into college. Like, obviously, that's not the name. That's not the name of the league.
Oh no, sorry, the G League. It used to be the D League. Now it's the G League.
But isn't there another thing where they're like, so anyone can go right from like high school to the G League?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, or they go overseas. Like LaMelo Ball was just over in Australia, and there was another guy who's over in Italy. But yeah, yes, they can now if they want to.
Yeah, so I mean, just the days of the college basketball rivalries, it'll still be there, but it's never going to be the same. And greats like John Thompson, Lute Olson, we're not going to see generations of that come up. I don't think. They're just not going to matter as much.
No, I mean you got a few left. You got Pitino, although you had Pitino, but you have John Calipari, but he's got some weird stuff attached to his name. You have Roy Williams is still around. But I mean, are there any other really massive names left? I guess, or maybe Coach K, of course.
Boeheim?
But as soon as Coach K retires, so Boeheim's still around too. That is true. Yeah. But most of them have gone away at this point. And I mean, Bill Self, as great as he is, just doesn't have that same gravitas. Or Jay Wright, who's been doing amazing things at Villanova. None of those guys even have the gravitas of like the Temple coach, Don Chaney? No, Chaney. What was his first name? I can't think of it right now. But like that guy had personality and just seemed like a larger-than-life figure, and they're just like the secondary coaches just don't seem to resonate as much anymore. And maybe it just may feel that way at the moment because we didn't have an NCAA tournament and we weren't reminded of them all. But I just don't think basketball. I don't think college sports is ever really going to be the same. The NCAA is about to fall apart, and college basketball is going to be one of the biggest. What's what I'm looking for? Biggest. Not even want to say victims, but roadkill along the way of everything going the way it's going.
Yes. So. Yeah. March Madness will always do well because it's March Madness. It's just one of those names that people will put out their bracket, try and figure stuff out on players that they're never going to care about again. Because it just means less. I don't want to say that it means less and less because March Madness I think will always mean something, but the legacy of the winners won't. Because I don't see a lot of those people. I mean, we're gonna have a lot. We could probably go through. Like maybe 10 years from now, we can look at the last, like some of the, like a 10-year period of NCAA champions from maybe 2010 on or 2020 on, and just see how many of them had any professional impact. And probably not that many.
Well, and part of that, though, too, is it used to be, like Duke, remember, you always used to only take 4-year players. Right? They wouldn't go for the people who are going directly back into the NCAA. Ewing was there for 4 years. Like, we all knew who he was.
Mm-hmm.
People are now out. We used to be a big deal when people left after 3. Now they're there for 1, or not at all. And it's hard to feel that much about a player when he's there. It's basically a mercenary position. I'm wondering if allowing the best players to just skip the NCAA altogether and just go pro again would bring back the NCAA feeling again if the players who are there staying longer is more of a minor league system as opposed to what we have now where it's literally just I have to go to classes for 3 months so I can play basketball in the spring and then I'm out.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ben Simmons was very vocal about that when he was at LSU. Like, why am I here? I'm here because I have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't shy about that when he was there. I think I saw, I don't want to say documentary, but just other, excerpts of something that he might have done for Australian television. I don't want to say that he was miserable. It was just the clear waste of time that he felt it was.
Plus, the LSU team was also terrible.
True. But
when he was there. So, it might be a different thing if they were winning, but they were awful around him. So,
mm-hmm. You're right. Winning cures everything.
Anyway, yeah, winning does cure everything. It's amazing how all of a sudden there are problems when something goes wrong.
So we lost 2 big ones. Before we go into another one, just because I said let's mix it up, just so that we don't do a death march, like it feels like a funeral procession.
Yep.
I know. I feel like this because this is sort of needs. I think I just want to touch on this briefly, only because it sort of made. I won't say front page news. It didn't, but it was news in like USA Today where I didn't even know you could do this, where you could sort of nominate somebody as a fan to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and someone did that for Colin Kaepernick. And I feel like we've talked about Kaepernick to death. But here we are again. I can't not talk about it, I think. We're a Hall of Fame show, so how do we not bring this up in some capacity? Did you have like a visceral reaction when you learned about that?
I was just surprised that he was eligible more than anything, because I knew that you could write in whoever you wanted for the Football Hall of Fame. I did that once in my 20s, actually.
Oh, who was that?
It was Ray Claiborne.
Oh.
So I don't know if anybody else appeared on the list. My 20s, I was found out you could do that, and I did it one time for Raymond Claiborne. I don't even remember if he appeared on the list or not, or if they got it. I just remember doing it. Yeah.
Well, he's not putting
I think he was ending I think I read an article in the Boston Herald that he was ending the edge of his time. He had never been a finalist and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he hadn't been nominated the year before. So, because anyone can nominate anybody. And then they go through that, or presuming they're within certain specifications. Like if there's someone who appeared in one game, your nomination isn't going to go anywhere.
Well, he's not nominating him as a player.
I was surprised he's eligible.
Yeah, well, he's not. He didn't nominate him as a player, but as a builder.
Oh, that I didn't read deeply enough into. Interesting.
Yeah, so like basically, for his humanitarian, well, not so much humanitarian work, just for the movement that he created, and he likened him, the individual who did this, and to Muhammad Ali, how he got a bad turn of hands when Ali refused to serve in the U.S. military. I clearly don't. Like anyone listening last few episodes, I do not put Kaepernick in the same breath as Muhammad Ali when it comes to social justice. And not necessarily because I don't, and again, I feel like I'm beating this dead horse again, but not because I don't love Kaepernick's original message. I love it. It's brilliant. And it needed to be said. And it's more relevant than ever. I just don't know what's in his head right now. I'm looking at his Twitter feed, nothing over the last few weeks. Nothing. What's he doing?
Yeah.
Like, this is the
I don't know. there's some interesting things. Like, he's just not doing that. I think both of you are very upset by the fact he never voted in the 2016 election for all that stuff. And it's a very interesting question. I don't know where he is. It's one thing to start and then, like, go and, I don't know, just step completely off the field while everything else is going on around him. It seems like a time more than ever he should be, if this was something he particularly cared about, that he should be at the forefront of, and he's not. And again, you and I are two white dudes in our 40s. Mm-hmm. Don't take this as us telling a black guy what to do. It's just strange that someone who started this and has basically gotten an apology from the commissioner of football saying we should listen to him sooner, is just now nowhere. It's very strange.
Yeah, and I'm glad you sort of brought that up because, again, like it's sort of like last week, I was very much adamant about, like, no one tell LeBron to shut up. He might say something dumb, but he can say whatever the hell he wants. It's his right. Same with Colin. It's just a strange thing that he's sort of, I don't want to say vanished off that, but it's almost like every day on, not every day on Twitter, but people will sort of like comment about how he's still kept away from the NFL. And at this point, I think that's what he wants. I think he was blacklisted, and I think when they decided that they wanted to try and bring him back, a lot of NFL teams were like, yeah, I don't know. But and he's reached the point in his life where he says, you know what, I don't need them, and people can think whatever they want, and I'm not going to correct that. He doesn't have to. He doesn't owe anyone any explanation, but I'm convinced he doesn't want to play, which he doesn't have to.
Right. Yeah. It's just weird because he's really started something that caught up. Finally, society caught up with where he was, and now he's just nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, now it's the rarity if you stand for the anthem. It's people want to hear what he's got to say right now, and I don't know why he's really not saying anything. So as for the sort of push to get him into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I'm sort of his legacy has really shot up this last year, but there's a lot more that he's got that I imagine he's going to say. So I want that to be written first, if that makes any sense.
It does. Fair enough. So yeah, I think it's probably too early for this, but it is interesting to see. I didn't realize he was a builder. I don't know how I missed that. Yeah,
so that's sort of like a pretty interesting thing. Like people were talking about that. It did get a bit of a. I mean, USA Today picked up on it, so I mean, like that's something, and it's certainly not slow news days in the United States. That's for sure.
Yeah, that is true. So I wish we had a slow news day.
Well, do you want to know what was news in Canada?
I'm afraid to ask.
All right, so 2 days ago, our version of Dr. Fauci, Dr. Theresa Tam, said to Canadians, or recommended to Canadians, that when you're having sex, keep your mask on. Not making that up. That really happened. It's just fascinating that this was something she felt needed to be said to all Canadians. That we have to make sure that, you know, especially if it's someone we're meeting for the first time, you know. She even actually said in her statement that, I mean, like, some of the best, the safest thing is sex by yourself. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but she did say that.
Well, judging by how some people wear their masks, I mean, prophylactics are not going to be worn properly either. Probably a pretty good point.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I'm wearing my mask. Yeah, it's dangling around your ear. I'm wearing it.
You're wearing it to cover your beard.
Well, yes. It's so funny. So another big basketball death. Clifford Robinson. And he was sick for quite a while, it seemed.
Yeah, Uncle Cliffy. He was on Survivor,
he finished like 5th back in 2012, 2013, and it seems like almost immediately after that he got sick, and because I hadn't seen or heard from him in a while, and then the idea that he'd been sick for 4 years, I never heard anything about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's another sad loss. Probably not someone who's going to get into the Basketball Hall of Fame, but recognized rightfully so by the NBA for the pregame events, along with Lute Olson and Chadwick Boseman, who we'll talk about. At that point, John Thompson hadn't yet to pass, but former 6th Man of the Year, former All-Star, and twice a second-team defensive player. So we're looking at a really good player. He wasn't that far away from 20,000 points, and anyone who can do that, is certainly worth discussing on this show.
Yeah, and going back to college basketball, he was really Connecticut's first player.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who led to Kemba Walker and Ray Allen and the rest of those guys. Because Connecticut, talk about a sleepy school that never did anything in college basketball. Clifford Robinson was the first person who came there and really put them on the map. He brought them the NIT, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you've never done anything, that's a massive deal. And Connecticut since then, they won 4 or 5 championships. I can't remember. But it's multiple. And back when he first got there, in 1985, there wasn't one. The thought of that was hilarious.
Do you know when the Connecticut women's team became a power? Was that after?
Gino Auriemma. Yeah, I believe it was after. Hold on.
Because, a lot of time when I think of Connecticut sports, that's like the one time I'll think of, that's the one school that women's basketball comes to mind first and foremost.
Yeah, so Auriemma got there in 1985.
Okay.
But their big run started in their first Final Four was in 91.
Okay.
So I'd say the beginning of the of both of them was about the same time. Calhoun, hold on. I forgot when he was there. Calhoun got there in 86. Because he was the head coach of Northeastern originally and got them from Division II to Division I. And he brought Northeastern to the Division I tournament 4 times, including 3 auto bids. So, and his best player, of course, in Northeastern was the late, great, retired Celtic number Reggie Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, no, it's probably about the same time. I would say the men hit the map a little bit before the women in terms of growing up in the Boston area and how much that went and how much we were paying attention. But the women certainly, there's certainly no school that's been as successful in both men and women's basketball as Connecticut. No,
definitely not. Maybe Tennessee was almost reaching that for a brief time, but obviously the men's team never.
No, on the women's side certainly. On the men's side, I would say not.
No. Yeah, actually, he got married in this island. I'm just reading, in the lovely island of Barbados, in 2003. So yeah, stroke in 2017. So it's probably why we hadn't seen too much of him in the last few years. And it's sad. Not even close to 60. Like far too young.
Yeah, I know that Rex Chapman, who's very active on Twitter, said that Cliff Robinson may have been his favorite teammate ever. So not just a very good basketball player, but a beloved teammate for many, many years. So,
yeah, so R.I.P. to the big man. And yeah, I guess at the same time, since I brought his name up, it's not typical of really the show, but Chadwick Boseman passed. That really hit a lot of people hard. For our purposes, he played Jackie Robinson in 42, was incredible in that film. The fact that he's only 43, I thought he was 10 years younger than that. I really did.
They seem to have the energy of someone who is 10 years younger than that.
Mm-hmm.
But he, clearly everyone thinks of him first as Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all of the tributes to him were essentially the salute from Wakanda.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much was going on. But it just genuinely seems like one of the single nicest people in Hollywood. A very talented actor. It's amazing seeing how sick he was, how many things he did towards the end of his life there. I mean, he got sick. Go ahead.
I was going to say, like 4 years ago, apparently, was it? I'm trying to remember what type of cancer. Was it colon cancer?
I believe so. Yeah. So he was since 2016. He was in Gods of Egypt, Captain America: Civil War, Message from the King, Marshall, Black Panther, Avengers: Infinity War, Avengers: Endgame, 21 Bridges, The Five Bloods, and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which hasn't come out yet. But it's going to be a posthumous release. But that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 movies in a 4-year period, including he did most of his own stuff for Avengers, apparently at the same time when he wasn't doing so well, which is the Avengers and Black Panther, which is one hell of a physical role. So
I've been trying to see if anyone or any other actors sort of knew about this. I haven't come across about anyone being aware of his ailment.
I hadn't either. I mean, it's the same, again, a different thing, but when Kelly Preston died earlier this year, that came out of nowhere, too. I know she was 57. She was older and a little bit more out of the daily light.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 57 is still young. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying he's older than Boseman. But that was something that literally nobody knew about either when she passed. So I think there are just certain people who like going public with stuff and certain people who like to keep things private. And as public as he was, I feel like that was just something he needed to keep to himself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I've never met the man. It just feels like he was doing that just to keep the power of that character alive, knowing how important Black Panther was to so many people.
Yeah. Going back to Cliff Robinson a second, there are a couple of pictures earlier this week. There's a picture of Robinson who is with the Suns playing, taking a shot in a game between Kobe Bryant and Shaq. And you're like, wow, two of those three people are gone. Oh. And then there was another picture of Chadwick Boseman and Kobe Bryant at the premiere of Infinity War. And they're like, wow, both those people are gone. And it's been a weird year in general, but like there are too many people who are dying young, and there's some old people who just need to go. I hate saying it. Like, can we just get rid of some member of Congress? I don't really care what side, but just one person has to go from this somehow.
As much as I shouldn't have a top 5, I do. But yes. It is unfortunate. And obviously, guys, we're kidding. We are not advocating death of any kind. But this was a bit of a punch of the gut for me, so I can just imagine how it was for people who that movie really changed. You know, I'm at that age where the movie's not going to change me, but you know what I mean.
But there was a lot of talk about how was a Black Panther movie ever going to make any money. Like, no one's going to go see a black superhero.
Was it really? Because, I mean, I just thought at that point, under the Marvel umbrella, people were just going to, like, watch it regardless.
Well, but they've been talking about making a Black Panther movie for years, and they couldn't get greenlit in Hollywood at all until the whole Marvel universe came all together. All right,
so yeah, I'm not.
And still, Black Panther. Think of the order of the Marvel universe movies. Black Panther is one of the last major releases for the heroes to get his own film.
All right, I love these movies, but I'm not a comic book guy, so.
I'm not a comic book guy either.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, like, in terms of the importance of the characters, is that not kind of where you would be? I mean, obviously it's different now, but in terms of the Avengers itself.
As long as when it comes to the Marvel universe, you just need to have your movie before Aquaman, really. One of my favorite, Jonathan Colson. I don't know if I've brought this up before. One of my favorite
songs from the early 2000s. He had a song called Aquaman's Lament.
Yes.
Where Aquaman is drunkenly singing in front of like a bar of superheroes and just hitting on Lois Lane. Oh, sorry, hitting on Vicky Vale and trying to steal her from Batman. And there's just a line. The first line of that is sitting in the hall of justice. But is there justice after all? Because after all, when you discuss us, I am the last name you recall. Yeah. So as long as you're in front of Aquaman, I think you're okay.
Well, Aquaman is ahead of the Wonder Twins.
Okay. I also love the line, barring maritime disasters, I've got some time to spare.
Yeah, I'd be getting drunk too. Like, there's more water than land. How am I not useful?
Yeah.
You ever watch like the old Super Friends?
Sorry, I was just singing the next one. Sorry. So he may sell a few more comics, and soberly he saves the world. But I've had 7 gin and tonics, and I want you to be my girl. Yeah, that song. If you guys haven't heard that, just go look that song up. It is catchy and kitschy and wonderful. Anyway, sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, like, because as a little kid, watching the Super Friends, which is originating in the 70s, and coming up to that basic conclusion really fast, like, why does Superman hang around with any of these people? He can do everything that these other ones can do. Like, he doesn't need anybody.
Again, that's in that song too. I can understand it if he was Superman. After all, that cat can fly. He's like, I get being with Superman, but I don't get Batman. So
and then they added the like B characters that weren't even part of the comic book. That was their version of going woke in the late 70s. All right.
It was hard to be woke in the late 70s.
Well, they tried with Apache Chief, Ncaa, El Dorado.
Yeah, that didn't go over so well. But to be honest, though, let's go back to Apache Chief for a second.
Yeah.
How many Native Americans are now represented in anything anymore?
In comics?
In popular culture. In popular culture in general. What's the last Native American role I can even think of in anything was Tonto from the Lone Ranger, and that was Johnny Depp in terrible face paint.
Mm-hmm. I guess
at least in the 70s they're included. They've been completely wiped off the map at this point.
That is very true. John Wayne is happy. He got his wish finally, if you read that Playboy article from 1970.
That lone Indian with the tear coming down his cheek is for chances for Native Americans in Hollywood. No longer. It's no longer the devastation of the land. So, anyway, all right. Going back, Apache Chief. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, they had Apache Chief, El Dorado, their Mexican superhero who just always disappeared. So I guess made him a better thief, I guess. The hubcaps were always missing at the Batmobile. No? That didn't work? Okay.
I let that one go, but my lips were sealed.
Nice. El Samurai, which was the samurai, and I couldn't even understand what the hell he was supposed to be, just his legs turned into a tornado. I forget there was another one that made no sense. I mean, I don't know why they just couldn't bring out Hawkman and just say, okay, well, now he's black. Because does it matter if Hawkman's black? No.
No. Doesn't matter if Hawkman, you can just stop it there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it didn't matter.
So
I don't know. But yeah, just those ones were so bad. Remember I had a job at a gas station, and so that was back when people were actually filling the pumps for you, and me and this other guy were just we're doing Wonder Twins every time we pump someone's gas. Form of an eagle, shape of a bucket of water. Why would you? And then the bucket of water, it's just like this water, and the Zan's face was in it. So stupid. I don't know how we got here. Oh.
So, the R&B Hall of Fame.
Okay. The R&B Hall of Fame. I'm confused, man, because you sent me that message on Twitter that they announced their 2020 class, and then I go on their site and they barely say anything at all. There's not even a press release, unless I couldn't find it.
I found the only press release I could really find was on a website called Soul Tracks.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And it wasn't from them. And it's an incredible group of artists. You'd think they'd want to make a bigger deal out of it, but it seems like the R&B Hall of Fame was just created out of two guys on a podcast fairly recently.
Well, but they've even had their ceremonies. So a lot of these huge names have, and even this class is massive. So if we just go through the 2020 class, which obviously they can't do a ceremony for obvious reasons. And some of these people are no longer with us, but still, I mean, these are massive names: Nat King Cole, Cab Calloway, Ella Fitzgerald, Mahalia Jackson, Etta James. Actually, is Etta still alive? I think if she is, she's got Alzheimer's.
No, she passed in 2012.
Oh, okay. Big J McNeely, Charlie Parker. I missed this completely. Ed Sullivan. I guess maybe that's why. Maybe they did this on purpose. None of these people are alive, so that they can't really have a class.
Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Yeah, Famous Flames, Laverne Baker. But still, I mean, like, how hard is it to put out a press release? I have a fictitious athlete Hall of Fame, and I promote it better than this. And none of these people are real. These are all real people, legends.
Uh-huh.
Evan, how did you even stumble across it? Because even when I just do this, like every morning, like 4 times a day, I'm doing just a Google search, news, Hall of Fame. I can't even find it.
Yeah, it disappeared in my timeline. I think it may have been attached to Tom Lane. Tom Lane said something about it, I think. Mm-hmm. And I saw it, and then I posted it. I sent it to you as soon as I saw it, because I hadn't seen anything else about it at all.
And that's why I haven't written about it, because I don't want to say that if you're not even going to write about it on your own site, why am I going to promote it on mine?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at, so it's been around since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
The Hall of Fame, the Natural Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame. They don't actually, I believe, have a permanent place for the hall at the moment.
It doesn't appear to, no.
They said that they were coming to Augusta, Georgia, at some point, but then the mayor of Augusta said that some more work needed to be done in order for that to happen.
Yeah, it's just, and it's a shame too, because I mean, like, they've had ceremonies with massive names who have appeared. They look to have been things that I would certainly love to go to.
Yeah, I mean, the first class is gargantuan, which is something that we are familiar with when we're trying to discuss all this, because when you're starting late, you have to put a bunch of people in all at once. Like, that first class has, James Brown, the Shylights, Sam Cooke, the Four Tops, Willie John, the Marvelettes, the Ohio Players, the OJs, Otis Redding, Edwin Starr, the Supremes, the Temptations, Martha and the Vandellas, Jackie Wilson. Like, that's a heck of a group of people, and that's only just picking a few out of them. And then all these classes are incredible. I mean, even last year's class was Stevie Wonder, Lloyd Price, Aretha Franklin, who hadn't been in yet somehow. You have an R&B Hall of Fame, and you don't have Aretha Franklin 6 years in. And I mean, that's very crazy. So, I mean, when you're getting Aretha Franklin in the same year, getting Ray Parker Jr. in, you have to make sure you have her in a little bit earlier than that. As much as I love Ghostbusters, so
well, maybe he said he'd show up at the ceremony. I hate to say it, possible. But I mean, like, this is one of the best ideas with possibly the best array of talent next to the Rock Hall, and I could even put this right over it in some capacity. I mean, if somebody were to say to me the Blues Hall of Fame is all the way more talented than everyone in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you might say no, but then you'd look at it like, maybe it's not that far off.
Yeah.
But no promotion, nothing. I don't know. I just want something like this to get its due, really, really bad. So like when I was just looking at this, I just felt so much happiness and sadness at the same time. If that makes any sense.
It does makes plenty of sense.
Because this is clearly so. This should be so much bigger than it is, and I do hope they find a home. But if I'm someone to sort of look at that, and I'm looking at their website, and their website's garbage. It's utter garbage. And I know it's not that hard to make a good website. Take it from me. I've done it. I have someone do that. I know somebody in Winnipeg who would be happy to do that. Is Winnipeg the Blues capital of the world? No, but it's got the Blue Bombers. So there.
Is it the Blues capital of Midwestern Canada?
You know what? I think it's safe to say that it's the blues capital of Manitoba. If there's a blues bar in Manitoba, we'd probably find it in Winnipeg.
Fair enough.
So sure, I'll even throw Saskatchewan in there. I'll bet you it's the blues capital of Manitoba and Saskatchewan and part of Labrador.
And I'd also probably throw in Northwest Territories, Nunavut, and Yukon. Although who knows about the Yukon? There could be some pretty good blues up there. So
something like old coal mining, or it was like gold mining blues, something like that. It's possible.
Could be.
Could have been. Yeah.
It's possible. All right. Well, I know we have two more big deaths to go through, so I just figured let me just run through some of the smaller ones just to get them out of the way here. People who we're not going to have time to talk about, but I thought we should at least bring up. We had Canadian Football League Hall of Famer, so Canadian Football Hall of Famer Dan Yoakum, who passed away, who was a 8-time All-Star, or 8-time East All-Star, and 4-time CFL All-Star with the Montreal Alouettes and 1 year in the Edmonton Ncaa Eskimos. Who's offensive tackle. He was drafted by the Eagles and then was claimed by the Buccaneers in the expansion draft. They refused to go play for them because he didn't want to be an expansion team, apparently a thing this week. But he passed away at the age of 70 earlier this week. We also had there have been many people for this over the years, but one of the bassists for the Bay City Rollers, Ian Mitchell, passed away at the age of 62. I say many because the Bay City Rollers, I guess the equivalent of Scotland's heartthrob band. I'm not quite sure what you would call them, but they've had like 25 members over the years. But he's the fourth one who's passed away. He was but one of the bassists for a while. But there, I don't really have much more. Do you have anything else to say about the Bay City Rollers?
Other than SATURDAY? Night? No, I got nothing. I got nothing. We have one of the greatest, I know it's not something we covered, but probably the greatest outdoor lawn bowling champion, David Bryant, passed away at the age of 88. He had won 5 world championships in lawn bowling. So I'm guessing that's bocce, but I'm not sure. But he's one of the most decorated people in the history of the sport. So I don't have much to say about lawn bowling. I'm not really sure how it differs from bocce or petanque, but there you go. David Bryant passed away at 88. We have Olympic gold medalist Nina Gorachova from the Soviet Union in gymnastics, passed away at the age of 95. So just 24 days before her 96th birthday. And she actually was a torchbearer back in 2004 when the Olympic torch wound its way through the Ukraine. She got the first leg, and first time the torch was ever in the Ukraine, she got to hold the torch for the first time. Okay.
And finally, Olympic champion and Actually, I take that back. This was a first Olympian from the United States passed away. I said that earlier, but I forgot about him. Olympic champion, gold medalist in the 1956 Summer Olympics, William Yorzik from the United States passed away at the age of 87. Then he's a member of the International Swimming Hall of Fame, where he's been in 1971. So that is the run-through quickly of the folks who we should probably at least mention, because there are so many other things that are happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go WWE or MLB next?
I'll just do WWE really quick, because it's a really big name for some people in wrestling, Bob Armstrong. I'm not that familiar with him, truth be told. He's a WWE Hall of Famer in 2011, but he was a big star when wrestling was regional, so mostly in Georgia and Florida, in Tennessee. He stayed local, main evented for 20 years in that area, and the father of four men who became wrestlers. The most recognized one, Bryant Armstrong, who people know as the Road Dogg.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I don't really I've never seen a match of his, so I can't comment more, but I think someone who is in the WWE Hall of Fame, and apparently he was like lifting weights up until like a week ago, even though he had cancer like everywhere.
Because the Road Dogg retired in 2015, and according to what it says, his dad retired in May 11th of 2019, when he was 79 years old. So, actually, he was 80. No, he was 79. So, I mean, the guy was still going well into what should have been his retirement, particularly for a wrestler. But no, like you said, a WWE Hall of Famer, apparently a very worthy Hall of Famer, but just not someone who any of us would have probably seen on television.
No, not where we grew up. For people, for our contemporaries in the American South, it'd be totally different. Where he was a big name, and his last big run as sort of like a main event talent was actually was in Tennessee in the Knoxville area in the mid '90s for a promotion called Smoky Mountain. So even though the WWE Hall of Fame, he was never really a WWE personality. That's never stopped them from inducting other big names who did not necessarily make them money. So he's a worthy choice. I had him ranked, I'll put it that way, at one point in time. Mm-hmm. So our condolences to the Armstrong family. Before we get to the baseball one, can I just sort of like touch on the Missouri Valley Conference?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so the Missouri Valley Conference, I didn't realize that it's been around for well over 100 years. And had some like top flight members. I just think of it as a second tier basketball conference, but they just announced their 24th Hall of Fame, which is just some massive names on it. They decided due to COVID, they're just going to like do just all veterans. So Did you see some of the names on this?
Yeah, go through it. That's a pretty good list.
Yeah, so Maurice Cheeks, went for a basketball player at Bradley, multi-time MVC, All-American, played good enough there, got enough attention that he went into the second round, NBA champion with the Sixers. Mean Joe Green, when North Texas was part of that. Again, I mean,
that's a pretty good name.
Oh, it's about as big as it gets. And they were going way back. So a name I'm not familiar with, but I certainly want to mention Clark W. Hetherington, University of Missouri, another institution I did not know was part of the MVC. Administrator from the University of Missouri, not Minnesota, from 1900 to 1910. Mm-hmm. And one of the founding fathers of this conference.
He will not be available to speak.
No, he won't be there. No, which I'm sure. I don't know what he'd really have to say at this point. There's probably some bad jokes I've got. I'm just going to hold them back. So
I had like 4, and I just didn't say any of them.
Yeah. So there you go, kids. You can learn restraint in your later years.
Wait. These are our later years? What the hell?
Well, once I said kids, right? I'm sort of implying. Of course, that would imply that somebody under 30, other than Vinny's, listening to this.
Who knows?
Yes, who knows? Absolutely. Fellow Canadian, the inventor of basketball. I didn't know all this stuff about James Naismith. Obviously, we know that he was the inventor of basketball. He did that in your home, near your area in the Northeast. I didn't know that.
Springfield, Massachusetts.
Yeah, I did not know that he was the athletic director in Kansas from 1919 to 1937. The guy who developed the rules of the sport in 1891, so then he becomes the first basketball coach. I guess if you invented the rules, you can pretty much say, no, you cheated. You cheated. And you go to the ref no, I know that this is a foul because I invented this shit.
A jump shot? How dare you? It's a set shot or nothing.
So massive. This is the only one who's, I guess...
his coach, Fog Allen, was inducted last year.
Right. I mean, so I guess, I don't know how... I guess they were just sort of looking back and okay, well, you know what, this counts. Why not? Kansas was part of that. You don't think of this as part of the Valley, but it was there. It counts. Good enough. And maybe he should have been there a long time ago. Obviously, he should have been.
If you invented basketball, probably yes. And you're in the Missouri Valley Conference, and somebody was in your conference for, God, I mean, I don't know when Kansas joined the Big Eight. I know that the Big Eight, I think, came around, if I'm remembering correctly, because I looked this up at one point. I think sometime in that late 40s. So they were probably NBC that whole time. And Missouri came with them. That was the border war. That continued up until going back to the breakup of college sports into terrible divisions again. But yeah, no, I mean, if you have the opportunity to induct James Naismith into the Hall of Fame, you induct James Naismith into your Hall of Fame.
No, absolutely. Again, like you said, I don't think he's going to have much to say about it, but you never know. Stranger things can happen. From Creighton, Tara Altman, the only one that's, I guess, a modern candidate, softball player, 2007 to 2010. Apparently the only MVC person ever to be all-conference in all 4 of her years. 3-time pitcher of the year. So obviously worthy. Maybe she'll be there.
That seems a lot more likely than James Naismith.
I would think so. This individual, F. Morgan Taylor from Grinnell. I've never heard of this school.
Grinnell's in Iowa. Actually, my wife's cousin went there.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, no, it's in Iowa. They actually, they were one of the ones. So, did I ever tell you how I was recruited to play college soccer? Did I ever tell you that, Scully?
No, I don't think so.
So, I played high school soccer, and I played defense, which was a problem on my team because 3 of the 4 guys who started our defense were first-team All-State. Mm-hmm. So I didn't play much. I was literally the 21st guy on a 22-person team. And I was only ahead of the backup goalie. So we were playing a terrible team named Watertown, which is actually where they caught the marathon bomber. So Watertown, by the way, nowhere near the water. But Watertown was simply one of the worst probable sports teams I've ever played in my entire life. My senior year of high school, in league, they scored 2 goals and gave up 68.
Oh, wow.
They were stupendously bad. So I got to play a lot that game because we went up 3-0 within the first 5 minutes, and the coach was like, I'm not going to waste any of my guys. Let everybody else play. So apparently there was a scout there to see some of my other teammates, not realizing how bad Watertown was. And I got to play a lot, and I made some very good plays in that game. And at one point I got tripped. I was dribbling out of the defense. Again, they're terrible. I beat 3 guys off the dribble, which is something which they should all be embarrassed about. And the 4th guy just came and took me out, and I flew through the air right in front of
benches and landed hard and just got up laughing that anyone would ever bother to foul me. And so I had a call that night from the coach or a coach from Muhlenberg College, which is in Pennsylvania. And I thought he was pranking me, saying that, you have a really good attitude. You've got good ball skills. You're a little undersized, but, if you came to Muhlenberg, we could really do whatever. I'm like, dude, I'm not spending – I don't even know where – I think Muhlenberg's Ohio, actually. It's like I had never heard of the school. I'm like, I appreciate that, but I don't think I really want to go to Muhlenberg. Like I said, I wanted to Georgetown at the time. And then over the next week, I got apparently they share scouting reports. I got phone calls from Elmira, Allegheny, Grinnell, and a whole bunch of these schools in the middle of nowhere that I had never considered trying to get me to come there to play soccer. All by making one play in a game against an absolutely terrible team when I play normally. So, yeah, so that's my story about Grinnell and how I know them and how I got recruited for soccer, even though I had no business doing so.
Well,
so there you go.
You could be the second person from Grinnell to make the MVC Hall of Fame. F. Morgan Taylor is the first. He's the first.
I missed out. If I remember correctly, I think Grinnell's got a student body of 400. So.
Damn.
Yeah, because my wife's cousin, Jess, came home for Christmas stuff with a guy who's actually, we were looking at wedding pictures the other day. He was at our wedding, which is dating from college. And we're this is kind of a weird person, but they're well, there are only 400 people at the school, so everybody pairs up with somebody. Okay, I guess that sort of makes sense. So.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Anyway.
It's not even specific what he even did that well at Grinnell. He was an Olympic gold medalist 2 years before he went to Grinnell in the 400 meters. And he still to this day, holds the school record for the long jump.
Oh.
So, I mean,
how many gold medalists have ever gone to Grinnell?
That we're aware of one.
I still remember going to Kenyon in Ohio, and I believe, oh my God, now that I've started the story, I'm embarrassed that I'm not remembering exactly. But I think that's where Paul Newman went.
Mm-hmm.
And Bonnie and Clyde robbed their bank. Paul Newman went there, and some other building burnt down. And I heard those three stories 9 times on my tour of campus. So if you got something going for you, you just got to keep going with it.
So Paul Newman just makes me laugh because when I started dating the lady who became my wife, Paul Newman had passed away around that time, and then I said, "Oh man, what a legend!" She looks at me like, "But the salad dressing guy's real?" My wife's from Indonesia, so
whenever I think of Paul Newman, I still think of his wife Joanne Woodward, who, trivia question, she was the first person to ever get a star in Hollywood Boulevard. Just as Joanne Woodward.
Really?
But they asked Joanne Woodward what it was like being married to such a sexual icon like Paul Newman. She goes, "If you heard that man fart, you would not think he was sexy at all."
Yes, flatulence, the great equalizer of our time.
I don't think any amount of flatulence can make up for those blue eyes.
But no, I mean, I couldn't stop laughing when she told me that. It's yes, she's just like Frankenberry. This, you think this is sort of like the picture that they were going to run with, but there's Mrs. Butterworth, Paul Newman.
He is a very handsome man.
Well, yes.
So.
It's also like when I explained to her who I was named after, and then because she never saw Star Trek, so I said, "No, I'm named after William Shatner." She's like, "Why did your dad like Priceline?" Different cultures. You gotta love it.
Yeah. All right, do you have anything else, or should we go to Tom Seaver?
Just two more. Connie Yori, Creighton student athletes and women's basketball. But Tom Thacker, basketball player, two-time champion with the Bearcats team that won the title, and he holds something that no one else will ever do this, ever. He won the championship as a player in the NCAA, NBA, and the ABA. So, pretty cool.
Well, certainly nobody can do that ever because it's impossible to go back to the ABA. So,
hence why it's a pretty cool thing. But yeah, Tom Seaver, that was, I guess, kind of expected. Passed away at 75. We were learned of his dementia diagnosis some time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really unfortunate. Greatest pitcher ever in New York Mets history. Greatest player, I should say, in New York Mets history. Vin Scully on Twitter said that the greatest right-handed pitcher he ever saw, which is about as high praise as you could possibly get.
I would agree with that.
Rookie of the year.
Yeah, I mean, he's so beloved that Citi Field's address was changed to 41 Seaver Way by the city of New York.
It's just incredible what he did just like right out of the gate. I think an All-Star every year except for one when he was injured when he was with the Mets. 3-time Cy Young. The Mets fans still probably to this day, a lot of the older ones pissed that he was traded in the middle of the 77 season to Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Where he still had quite a bit left in the tank. If I remember correctly when I was reading all about this, 1981 he was the Cy Young runner-up,
mm-hmm.
which is pretty incredible. I think a lot of people don't associate.
And he's in the Reds Hall of Fame too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. First player, rightfully so, to have his number retired by the Mets. He was, for the longest time, I think until Ken Griffey, I'm positive on this, until Ken Griffey beat that out, he had the highest voting percentage for the Hall of Fame, where 5 people did not vote for him.
Yeah. That was it. But Griffey broke it, and then, of course, we've now had 2 unanimous since then when they decided that was dumb.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It's a shame, but 75, one hell of a life,
Yep. And I do have to say it is kind of ironic. The last game of his Major League career, he didn't appear in it. The last game of his Major League career was a loss to the New York Mets in the World Series in 1986.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, he was on that Red Sox team in '86. That made it all the way there and looked like they're going to win. And they ended up losing. His last appearance was in September. He never pitched in playoffs.
Was he on the roster?
Actually, I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. But his team's last game was a loss in Game 7 in the '86 World Series to the Mets.
Oh, it has to be bittersweet. It's one of those guys I just couldn't remember. I just didn't want to imagine him playing for the Red Sox. No disrespect to the Red Sox, but
it was. I was a kid and thought it was weird because in '86 I'm 7 years old and I still thought it was weird that Tom Seaver was on our team.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he was on the White Sox too for 3 years.
Yeah, it didn't really do that much there. I think his run in Cincinnati is underrated. Obviously, you should always think of Tom Seaver as a Met first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. But he did well for Cincinnati. His last 2 All-Stars were there, and 2 of them that were earned, not a throwaway All-Star. There's nothing I hate more than throwaway All-Stars.
Right, yeah. By the way, Seaver had a knee injury. So he was not rostered.
Oh, okay.
At the time.
So potentially he could have been.
He was traded mid-season to the Red Sox for Psycho Steve Lyons.
Was that the guy with the yips?
You remember Steve? Go ahead.
No, was Lyons the catcher with the yips, or am I thinking of a different catcher? No, that's
You're thinking of a different catcher. Steve Lyons is the guy who once... Steve Lyons is the guy who once ran to first base and slid in and got dirt in his pants. So he took his pants off at first base to take them all out. Like, undid his belt, pulled it all the way down, wiped himself off, and pulled it back up. So, Lyons is a crazy man. He's a beloved Red Sox player still to this day. But Lyons is a crazy man. He's Nesson. I think he's on Nesson still. He was a sportscaster for a while. But
I think there's a rule that if you're a catcher, you're more likely to sort of like find work as either a manager or a broadcaster.
Yeah, but Lyons was a utility infielder, though.
Oh, then who the hell am I thinking of then? Was there a former catcher in this era, around this time with the last name of Lyons? Or am I just completely out to lunch? I'm out to lunch.
You might be out to lunch. I know, because I remember he played a game between the White Sox and Cubs, an exhibition practice or exhibition game where he played every single position, including pitcher, during the game. So he was a designated hitter, pinch runner at different times, but he played every position with the White Sox when he was there in one game. So,
Seaver could have held. I'm just reading here. Seaver could have probably held that record that was broken by Griffey much longer, because I'm seeing here that 3 people didn't didn't write in anything out of a protest for Pete Rose not being on the ballot. One person was just coming off surgery, and then one guy just didn't send anything. Just put no. So I mean, realistically, you would think that he would have got those 3 who decided they were going to do a protest in a hissy fit. Why they have their ballot?
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
and the guy coming off surgery, if he's not able to vote, I don't think that should even count one or another. I'm not going to begrudge him. The 80s were different than it is now for getting stuff in and around. And I understand you can send stuff in the mail, but who knows how in or out of it that person was? You know what I mean?
There's certain votes apparently you can send in the mail depending on what party you belong to.
Well, it's once you mail though, you have to go to the place to make sure that you can't vote a second time. So to make sure that the system works. But if you do vote a second time, our Attorney General isn't sure whether or not that's illegal. They're talking all about voter fraud and people voting twice. And when it got brought up, he's like, I'm not sure voting twice is illegal. You're the Attorney General, and this is all he's been talking about. So,
I don't know how you wound up with these 2 possibilities.
Boy. So,
well, it's like you've seen Treehouse of Terror, the Simpsons episode, and it was Kang and Kodos. I forget which. Yeah. It's a 2-party system. What are you going to do?
I voted for Kodos.
Yeah.
Yeah. But was it Clinton and Dole are holding hands, walk down the street, and someone's like, "This doesn't look good, guys." And he's like, and I think it's Dole's character or whoever's playing brothers Kang or Kodos, and Dole says, "If you can think of a better way to exchange long protein strings, I'd like to hear it."
I think my favorite bit though when they were sort of discovered and the disguises came off and like, we can't vote for them. Well, it's a 2-party system. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I'm gonna vote for a third party. Sure, throw your vote away. Yeah, so I kind of want a shirt that just says "Don't blame me, I voted for Kodos." I wonder if those exist, and if they don't, I feel like I need one anyway. I could just make one.
Why do we not have a Teespring?
Yeah, well, at one point we had a party up in New Hampshire where I just told everyone to bring a blank T-shirt, and I brought some fabric paint and some stencils or some stamps, and everyone just made their own T-shirts for the party. It was actually kind of cool. So I wrote "I peed in Poland Spring" on mine, and some people who didn't know randomly showed up who worked for Snapple, and they thought that shirt was hilarious. And I'm presuming I was all over Snapple headquarters with the picture because every single one of them needed to take an individual and then a group shot with me. So,
oh my God! Although I think
another one of my buddies. Sorry, another one of my brothers made a shirt just said, "I love pot," and he still wears it all the time.
Why not? Why not?
Why not? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think if you just want to solve America's woes, you just Ted Wheeler. Doesn't matter who you are, people hate him. I've never seen ratios of almost 100 to 0 on his tweets.
Mm-hmm.
The Portland mayor.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen anything. I did an experiment on one of his tweets just to see how long before it was somebody who actually was nice to him. It took 302 comments before it was somebody who said, who wasn't like completely dumping all over him. And the closest really he said was, well, he's not as bad as Trump. That was it. that was the kindest thing that I could find after 300 comments on a Ted Wheeler tweet.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like that on a politician. I mean, usually it's like 60-40 with all the trolls come out. Sometimes I'll just check to see, like, AOC gets hit really hard, no matter what she says. Same with Trump, no matter what he says, even if he says something pretty brilliant. Happy 4th of July. You racist! Like, okay. Well, and it's usually that same 60-40 ratio. Mayor Ted, like 100. It's perfect. He is the Mariano Rivera of negative ratio for Twitter.
Mm.
That's not quite like Punky Brewster, but it's something.
Hey, we got to fabricate making your own T-shirts. I mean, come on.
Yes. Again, we went all over the place as we typically do. Not sure what we're going to be looking at next week, but something will come up because something always does.
Something always does. We may find out if we're going to have any nominees for the Rock Hall or whether it's going to wait till next year. So we'll see.
You think it'll be out that soon? Because I don't see this happening till October.
I think we're going to get an announcement as to whether or not they're doing it.
Oh, okay.
Not who they're going to be. If they're going, no, I agree with you. If whoever they're going to be, we'll find out in October if it's happening this year. Mm-hmm. But there's some murmuring that they may not make any nominees until like January, and then still have everything at the same time to give, I don't know, stuff to calm down. I'm not exactly sure.
It's again, I think the microcosm of this year is Boston unloading talent to San Diego.
Yeah,
that's 2020.
That is kind of amazing. And then the next day, Mitch Moreland was named the Jackie Robinson player nominee for the Red Sox. The day after.
Oh, I missed that.
He's the Red Sox nominee for the Jackie Robinson Award. They're legitimately, at this point, you can make up any combination of names and ask me whether it's a Red Sox starting pitcher or one of the members of the Chainsmokers, and I won't be able to tell you. I literally would be like, is it a white guy name? I don't know. It's one of those two. So.
As I don't know what it is right now. I'm sure it's sort of changed. I haven't watched baseball tonight. But entering the day, the Jays were tied with New York.
Yeah, good for you guys. Believe me, I'm rooting for anyone who's not New York, so good for you guys.
That just blew my mind. I can't see that holding, but still. With a team with no home. Well, Buffalo. So no home.
Buffalo.
Ugh. All right, so with that, I think we're pretty much good. So same time next week. You can do it earlier. So my apologies again, Evan. Fantasy football, I put together an team, so we'll see what happens. That delayed us a day.
Yeah, I get to draft my fetid chupacabras team of 2020 on Sunday. So
nice. All right, maybe we should work on a fantasy football show, but I'm probably not the person to host that.
No, definitely not. I put less and less time into fantasy. So
There you go. Dear Mr. Fantasy, play. How does it go? Dear Mr. Fantasy, play. Damn it.
And with that, you can learn that for next week. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, I really ended this on a dud. It won't be the last time I do that. All right, stay
You
safe.
ended it on a sour note. There we go.
Literally.
I'll talk to you next week, man.
All right, take care. Bye. Yeah, not all of my endings are gems, but it's an ending. Stay tuned. We're going to have some more content on the regular at nothallofame.com, and with that, we hope everyone stays safe.